Well, I ultimately took the life of a man in 1984. He was being involved with drugs. And I was arrested in 1987 and convicted of murder and ended up doing 30 years in prison. And it was there that I really started to bring about a very long-lasting change in my mindset.
Welcome back to Prepare to Compete presents Veterans Voices. Today's guest is Mr. Stanley Hunter, an Army veteran whose story is a raw picture of what resilience looks like. He grew up in a small farming community in Riverside County, raised in a struggling single-parent home, searching for where he belonged. At the age of 17, he joined the U.S. Army, served in the armor, and quickly proved himself, earning leadership early, taking on high-trust responsibilities, and learning what it means to lead from the front. But his journey didn't stop at the uniform. Mr. Stanley Hunter faced years of hard turns and heavy consequences. And inside the darkest chapters, he chose transformation through mentorship, counseling, and commitment to creating a better path for others. He helped build life-changing programs behind the walls, using art as a vehicle for healing, purpose, and second chances. This is a conversation about identity, accountability, and rebuilding your life, one decision at a time. Please welcome Mr. Stanley Hunter. It's so excited to have you here, and we just want to get to know, one, who is Stanley Hunter, understand military background from you, and also just kind of the ventures that you have going on today. So first and foremost, thank you so much for being able to, sit with us today. It's an honor to have you here.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, Mr. Hunter, again, like I said before, you have so many different things being able to support veterans and really do the service and work in the world. But before we get there, we always want to know, for our veterans, for our audience, and for our members here, first off, who is the veteran that we sit with, right? So if you could be able to give us a little bit of your background, where you're from, what actually cultivated Mr. Hunter?
Wow, that's a pretty long, involved story there. I'm from Riverside County in Southern California.
Okay.
A town called San Jacinto. Little valley community, farmland. So I kind of always felt like I was a country boy growing up.
Wow.
And lots of livestock. But my father was in the Navy. So as a Navy brat, we traveled. He was stationed in Pensacola, San Diego, all over the place. So
wow.
We moved around quite a bit, but finally settled into Southern California, and which is where I went to school up until the 8th grade. Then my family decided to move to Arizona. So I tried to go to the school system there for about 10 months and finally ran away at 14.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and hitchhiked across the country to Missouri, back to California. I was kind of lost as a youngster, searching.
Obviously that's very intriguing, right? Being able to kind of really unpack that and being at such a young age, first and foremost. But before we get there, you mentioned that your father was in the military.
Yes.
Okay. And with your father being in the military, how did that actually, get involved in your day-to-day life and civilian life? How did that actually impact you?
Do you know, growing up as a Navy brat, I can remember it just as plain as day. I can remember everything about living in naval housing, the people on the base, my dad getting ready, going to the destroyers and taking tours, and everyone was welcome at our dinner table. So
wow.
I didn't grow up with any racism or anything like that. It was just, I'm really grateful for having been exposed to that sort of an upbringing that early on.
Yeah, that's amazing. As we know, the military is a melting pot, right?
Yeah.
You're able to kind of have different cultures, different religions, just different demographics, which it actually, in my view, really kind of propels a process and development, But with that said, understanding kind of how that worked. You did mention, at the tender age of 14, how did that, really come about? Being able to leave home and, after relocating to Arizona, how did that come about? Running away there.
Well, I had all my childhood friends in Southern California. My great grandmother lived there, and I always considered that home base. It's where I felt the safest. I was kind of lost as a kid growing up. My parents divorced early on, so my mother was a single parent raising 5 of us by herself. So we struggled on many different levels there. But I never knew who my real father was. So putting 2 and 2 together, I finally figured out that, I'm a blonde-headed kid growing up with 4 other siblings that have pitch black hair. Why am I the tow-headed blonde? But anyway, never really found out who he was. But as a youngster, it really bothered me. So I felt like I was searching for who is he and where is he, And I always kind of felt like I wanted someone to care enough about me to reach out, which never happened. So having spent years just kind of processing that, I got to a point where I was like, you know what, whoever he was, I'm grateful to be alive. And he missed out on a good friendship. So,
Yeah.
we did the genealogy on one of the DNA things, and I found a 3rd cousin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but none of us know who he was. So, anyway, I'm named after someone who's not my father. So, and I'm the 3rd. My son is the 4th, same name. And but anyway, yeah, I struggled with some things growing up as a kid. It was rough back in those days. It was growing up in the 60s.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Definitely. I think that was a big transition in the world, right? Yeah. Just in general. But, with that, understanding that, obviously being a kid from the country and having to just really relocate and leave everything, I can only imagine the impact on that. But it sounds like your father did leave some real structure in life in regards to kind of the baseline and the way you see the world and where it's shaped, right? So with that, I just wanted to know, from the age of 14, getting to the military, what was that like? How did that transpire?
I always knew I wanted to go in the military. I thought I'd go in the Navy. So funny enough, I went to the Navy recruiter, and they'd asked me if I'd ever been in trouble, and I'd never been in trouble. But I mentioned to them that one time a friend of mine, just, we were kids, pulled up in a car, and I went for a ride with him. Well, come to find out the car was stolen. And I was trying to be as forthcoming and honest with the Navy recruiter as I could, and he said, yeah, maybe you can try next door at the Army. For me, it was a blessing.
Yeah.
Looking back, the Army was really where I needed to be.
Wow.
Yeah. My brother was in the Navy.
Okay.
My older brother's 14 months older. And I grew up watching all the war movies and just, my dad being in the service and looking at all his, like the yearbooks or whatever they are, from all the different ships that he was on. And,
wow.
Was really focused on being in the military, serving my country.
Got it. So obviously, going to the recruiter and so I'm sorry, what age are you at this point?
So I couldn't wait till I was 16 and a half to go talk to the recruiter with my mom.
And when is this back in?
70, I went in 75, so 74, just, thereabouts.
Well, about the height of Vietnam.
Pardon me, yeah. My dad was in Vietnam, and I actually got in under the Vietnam era with my GI benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I bounced around, hitchhiking across the country, settled down into Orange County with my grandmother, went to school. But, I was a mixed up kid. So the area that I grew up in was somewhat economically deprived. I didn't really see a future. But I had a cousin and an uncle in the Army over in Germany, both of them. And they told me, Bud, get out and see the world, join the Army. So that's what I wanted to do, and so I told my mom, look, I want to join the Army.
Wow.
And so she signed, and, had to wait till my 17th birthday, so I was on the delayed entry program. And what a life it began. You know?
That's phenomenal. So how long did you wait when the delayed entry program? Because sometimes they'll make you wait for a pretty long while.
No, a few months.
Few months.
Yeah, I went in at 17, right when I turned 17. Let's see, 2 months after, I finally went to basic.
And were you able to go ahead and select your job, or how was that
I
experience?
took the aptitude test. I'm best qualified as a crane operator.
Okay.
And I really wanted to go into construction, CBs or something, learn to do construction. But they told me, well, if you sign up for an extra year, 4 instead of 3, and you go into tanks, we'll give you $2,500. And I'm 17. I'm like, I've never seen $2,500. Yeah. So I told him, yeah, I'm willing to do that, as long as I can go to Germany.
Oh, wow.
You will be shipped out to Germany first thing. Yeah, that's how it all started. Went to Fort Knox, basic, AIT. That was an eye-opener. Turned into a young man real quick. I'm so grateful for the discipline and just the structure of going through that training and becoming a young soldier and eventually finding myself in Germany.
Wow. Well, again, I just want to unpack that a little bit and get to know more. Because again, you're not the only person that got dangled that carrot. I think a lot of people we dangled that carrot and once entry of service. But now we're talking about we're in the 70s here.
Yeah.
Understanding Vietnam era and kind of navigating that. What was boot camp like when you actually did get shipped off? How did that experience take me down that road?
Being that I had hitchhiked around the country and bounced around, I wasn't focused on much, but I knew I needed to be in good shape. So I started running, I started exercising and knowing, okay, I got to get ready for boot camp. I grew up in a different era, in the 60s, the hippies and, High Times magazine. I mean, that's the era I grew up in. So I embraced that culture without realizing it wasn't normal. So growing up as a kid, you go to the swap meets, there's head shops everywhere. It was different. So I messed around a little bit there before basic, but then told myself, put all that aside, went in the military. So I actually loved boot camp. I thrived. I loved it. I was the one in the back making sure no one fell behind me. Come on, let's go, And I don't know why, I enjoyed it. I was hungry for something. And that's what I took to, was basic. Funny because I was kind of a knucklehead and would say and do things that apparently pissed off my drill sergeant. So he'd have me doing push-ups, Drum, give me 50 push-ups. And I finally got to the point where I just couldn't do any more push-ups. So once I collapsed, I told him, hey, you got no more in me, drill sergeant, But looking back, he took a liking to me.
Yeah.
I can see that now. At the time, I was like, you can't beat me. But no, I always kind of pushed the limits, but I was all about the team. And that's what I think I enjoyed the most, the camaraderie of all of us just out in the bivouacs, training and doing what we needed to do to learn how to survive in that environment.
Yeah, true indeed. A lot of times boot camp shapes you for unity, right? A lot of times we're in the world for self and don't know how to develop lead a team, create a common goal and strive for that goal and actually accomplish it, right? And I think, it sounds like you were leading the pack. It sounds like you were leading the pack there in many ways.
I don't think I was leading the pack, but I was in it to really enjoy the time. Nice. I'd waited for a long time. And remembering back, I don't even really think I shaved yet. I found myself in Germany. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm only 17. I barely shaved.
Yeah, one of the great things about boot camp that I enjoyed it just honestly the structure.
Yeah.
Right. The structure became.
Really
yeah, because you just kind of, I think, floating and being able to create a structured environment really puts a structure to human. In a lot of people in many ways. But with that, obviously, so as soon as out of boot camp and officially, are you still a crane operator or at that point are you a tank?
I signed up for armor.
Okay.
going in.
Okay.
So I went to Fort Knox, went to basic, and then went to AIT, Advanced Individual Training.
Yes.
Right there in Fort Knox for armor. And after that, I forget, I might have had a week off, maybe 2 at the most, and then straight to Germany. I remember getting on the plane, telling my mom, all right, here we go. But yeah, it was quite the eye opener.
How did your mom react?
She was happy for me, but sad, I'm going to another country.
Yeah.
And a little probably worried about me, But yeah, I just told her, look, this is how much money I'm going to save. This is how much money we're going to have when they finally come back. And so let's just focus and stay positive.
And that's awesome. That's a great mindset to have. I think going into any situation like that, you always got to stay positive.
Yeah.
But how did that impact you, though? Obviously, we want to shape our mindset in regards to positivity. But how, as a young man, going from a different country where, again, in a partial war, right? Does that actually impact you emotionally? Does that give you fear? Does that give you joy? Are you excited?
All the above. I was excited. This was during the Cold War. So getting there in 75, I was in the 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment. So our primary mission was recon surveillance of the East-West German border, the Iron Curtain. So we had 300 miles of border that we would patrol. And 4 times a year we would go there. And that was an eye-opener. If we lost radio contact for more than 15 minutes, the camp went on alert. So it was very much focused on gaining any sort of intelligence that we could, any sightings of anything, especially if you could get pictures of anyone's weight. So, we were always trying to see if there were officers on the border. I remember just staring at the towers. They had East German towers and Russian towers, sometimes side by side. And I learned a lot. I was shocked when I come to understand that all the mines were on East Germany's side of the fence, used to keep the citizens in the country because it was communism.
Yeah.
And it was hard for me to wrap my head around that. They're being held captive. I thought you were trying to keep us out, So we would have briefings and debriefings. Sometimes they even brought some of the soldiers that had escaped, and they would brief us and tell us how they escaped. And the West German government would give them housing, jobs, a new life. Because a lot of them, their families were separated when the wall went up. Closest relatives, just because you're on that side of the street and I'm on this side, We watched towns disappear overnight.
Yeah.
Any sort of movement we see, and they told us our life expectancy was 58 seconds, that we were literally the first ones on the line and we wouldn't even know it if the balloon went up.
Wow.
So that was kind of an eye-opener as a 17-year-old kid. I'm like, wow, it would really be horrible.
I'll say again, just kind of pinching myself in a situation like that. If I was that, again, I would just feel so grateful for what you once had, right?
Yes.
And now it's kind of opening such a visual component where the rest of the world, it may not be what you think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you feel, again, as that young soldier there, did you have anyone that really supported you during this time frame? Because again, we went down so many transactional events that happened.
Yeah.
We mentioned the camaraderie, we mentioned the teamwork, we mentioned, your actual development, but do you feel as though that you had someone in leadership or someone to support you during that time?
In the very beginnings, a lot of the platoon sergeants I had were phenomenal. Just incredible human beings. So knowing that we were basically kids, we're young men, taking that into consideration, but there was also a job to do. So, they held us accountable to, when we had alerts, get all your machine guns on the tank, get uploaded, combat ready, and get to the gate. We're rolling out, So there was that aspect of a lot of training, a lot of preparation for training, and maintenance on our tank. But yeah, I met some really good people. It was a different time coming out of Vietnam. There were a lot of men that were, to be just frankly speaking, broken.
Wow.
I mean, they struggled, you know. So sometimes in formation, they would tell us, all right, everyone roll up your sleeves. And you would see tracks on some of these gentlemen, some of these men that they just, were struggling with the addiction coming out of that horrific environment. And it must have been, it was a nightmare.
Yeah. I think, there's a lot of shadows on what transpired during the Vietnam era, and actually understanding, your experiences, because everyone didn't go straight home.
No.
Right? Everyone didn't go straight home. There was a lot of, lateral movements and platoons and what have you. And again, Vietnam was a very terror, common drug use, common mutiny, just so many different things transpired towards the end, right? One of the reasons I think where we got out when after the tail end of those things happening. But now with your experiences there, how did that affect you?
Well, I had to look at the reality of a lot of things and really go kind of real quick, just come to terms with just the way things really were. I wasn't shielded from, like, being in the States and not really having a clue. Mm-hmm. Now I'm in the front, in the very front line, and I'm hearing things about the world that I had never heard before. But I developed a lot of great friendships. We all stuck together, had some friends. There was a little bit of racial tension. Mm-hmm. It just depended on where I was, which was kind of odd to me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't grow up with it. But you've got people from all over the country, and all of a sudden we're all together.
Oh, yeah.
So you had to really be understanding, and I've always felt like everyone was my friend anyway, growing up as a kid. So I just like to make friendships.
Yeah, and that's what it's about, right? A lot of times, we have the common goal, which kind of unites us all. Yeah. And with all this tension and goes on, we understand that we're all individuals. However, that common goal of unity really puts us forth, and it's all minded. We focus on the goal, we focus on the mission. But with that said, how long did you spend in Germany there?
I was there from 3 years. I forget how long I'd been in, but just at about 19 years old, so a couple of years. Interestingly, I flew back and took leave in 1977, the year my class was graduating.
Oh,
so
wow.
That was kind of an eye-opener because I've already been to Germany for 2 years, and my class is graduating in high school. So that was pretty cool to get back at that time. And then when I got back, I caught wind that they were looking for people to go to PNOC, which is Primary Non-Commissioned Officers Academy. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the guys turned it down. They were like, no, I'm not going to that. It's like basic training 10 times worse, And I was hungry for it. So I went to the first sergeant and I told him, first sergeant, I'd like to go to PNOC. And he told me, are you serious? And I said, yes. He said, well, when can you be ready? And I said, I'm ready right now. Mm-hmm. I always kept 2 sets of clothes, my inspection set and the set that I worked out of. I always needed to be sharp and always ready. So when we passed an officer, we would salute. And we would have to say, always ready, second to none, sir. Mm. And they would reply, toujours prêt, which is always ready in French. Mm-hmm. So he told me, you're leaving in the morning. And I was like, yeah, so I was terrified actually, but I was ready, And I had a friend that had went there while I was at the academy. He lost his life.
Wow.
Yeah. I learned that when I got back. But that was an eye-opener for me. It was an infantry school, and I was in armor. But I took to it just like a fish in water. I was hungry to know.
Yeah.
I want to know how to read a topographical map, how to call for fire, recon, surveillance. I was hungry for all that knowledge. And I did pretty well. I didn't realize that they finally said, okay, well, we're going to elect one person out of each squad to go before the E5 board. And I was like, okay, cool. And they said, for this squad, we're electing a specialist hunter. And I was like, no, what do you mean, me? These guys are more qualified, you know. You're going to represent us to the E5 board. So I went and hurried up, tried to get a haircut, and the cadre caught me and said, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm going to get a haircut. They told me, no, we want you to represent us just the way you are right now, the way you've been carrying yourself during this training. So I went to the E5 board, and I was terrified. But upon graduation, we were all there, and they called number one up onto the stage. And it was a class of 145 people. They pinned sergeant stripes on his shoulders. And we were like, wow, someone is actually a sergeant, you know. And they said, and top two, specialist hunter. And I was shocked. I didn't want to stand up because I was like, maybe I didn't hear that right. I'm not going to be embarrassed, you know.
Yeah.
But no, specialist hunter, front and center. So I went up there and they gave me a keychain and a light, top two. And I was blown away. I was like, yeah, that's kind of cool. You know, I feel accomplished. I'm like, I really did something.
Yeah.
And not suspecting that it would go any further. So graduated, went back to my unit. 2 weeks later, they called me out of formation and pinned sergeant stripes on me, gave me my orders. So that was an eye opener. I was surprised by that as well.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story. That's fantastic. It sounds like that's a turning point for you.
It was, and I think a lot of people didn't think I deserved it, that I didn't earn it. You know, a lot of the older sergeants, staff sergeants, whatever. Well, I had to learn tact and finesse. You know, I'm trying to get the mission accomplished, whatever the detail is that we're going to go do. And I've got 35, 40-year-old men that, you know, and I barely shave. I'm 19 and a half, so. But, yeah, there were some struggles during that time. And I went through some pretty dark times during that phase of my career in the service.
Gotcha.
Got through it.
That's fantastic. Again, you know, I think when, you know, obviously when success comes, there's always eyes looking, right? And I can also see you have much humility now, but I'm sure that you were so excited and really just ready to lead the charge in there. But mentioning, you know, there was some shadowing times.
Yeah.
What was that kind of? Tell me more about that. I want to make sure our veterans understand that they weren't the only ones that went through those shadowing times in service.
So a lot of times, I didn't feel like I fit in. Now, this is just something I've struggled with my whole life. So it was there in the military as well. So I knew early on when I got to Germany, we would all line up in a line and we would walk in the squadron and pick up all the cigarette butts.
Yeah.
And I told myself, and the sergeants would be behind us telling us, hey, come here, you missed this one. You know, and I made my mind up right then and there. I want to be one of them because I don't smoke and I don't want to pick up cigarette butts. You know? But I never really felt like I belonged, you know, so only because of my childhood, the things I struggled with, a lot of neglect, a lot of just whatever it was, I carried that with me still. So trying to fit in, but not feeling like I do fit in, not being acknowledged, there was some hatefulness, you know. I was told, this isn't Hunter's Army. You need to do it the Army's way. Well, I like to lead by example. So I would be the first to jump in and show someone, look, this is what we're going to do. But we used to call them lifers, people that were committed to their career, which I wish I would have been committed because I didn't get, you know, retired at 37. Have some medicine. But, yeah, so I guess I rebelled, you know, throughout my life. So some of that was in the military as well. So there was a lot of things I hadn't figured out just yet. So I felt lost at times. And being in another country, no family, no contact with family in the States much. Yeah, it was kind of dark times for me.
Yeah, I think you again, that's very common.
Yes.
You know, identity issues because you are shaped one band, one sound, right? going into any military fraction, but also understanding you're reshaping your entire life.
Yeah.
So you want to have that support. Now, do you think you really received that support while you were in service, or was it something that you had to find?
It was something I had to find. Yeah. Some of the, the military just wasn't equipped to deal with some of the things we were dealing with at that time.
Wow.
Today is a completely different game. It's a game changer. Now everything is available.
Yeah.
If you need counseling, it's readily available. Things that back then they just didn't quickly identify. Now it's apparent and it's addressed. I didn't feel like I had the support that I needed. Yeah.
Understood.
There was envy. There was some hatefulness, and frankly, some of the people that were in charge, growing up with an alcoholic father, I wasn't really willing to listen to someone that had an alcohol problem. So if I seen that, that was a trigger for me. So I rebelled against that as well. So, yeah, at times I just didn't want to listen to some of the people that were in charge.
Yeah, substance abuse. I think substance abuse is one. I think obviously during that time frame, it could be such a heavy, heavy thing that goes on in service. And I actually think it's a part of the culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can honestly believe it's part of the culture. But beyond that, now you get over that, and now you're transitioning back to the States, right?
Yes. Went back to Fort Knox. Served my last 6 months there. And I didn't take leave for a couple of years, so I still had my ID card for 45 days. So I jumped on a military hop and went back to Germany. I had a girlfriend that was a lieutenant working in the intensive care unit. So I went back to surprise her. And stayed there for 45 days. Ended up coming back. It was very expensive to live there in the free world in Germany.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the economy was very expensive.
Oh, wow.
So the day before my ID card expired, I flew back. And so it was Sergeant Hunter one day, and hey, you're in my parking place the next. Yeah. I felt like I was somebody, and then I wasn't.
And I want to stay there for a second, right?
Yeah.
Because that transition out the military, you being, again, a sergeant, then dropping down to a civilian where everything is different. The entire world has changed.
Yeah. Yeah, the world had changed. I had grown. Things I just really didn't understand. Now I do understand. But so that's in 1979, and it was still kind of crazy. It was different. And coming back to the States was just kind of like a shock.
Was it a culture shock? Was it
Well, I wasn't used to it. I was a kid when I left, and now I'm a young man, and of course now I've got responsibilities, whereas before I didn't. I walked into Northrop Aircraft and was hired immediately. They said, look, you have your GD-214, you're hired. Fill out this application. I went there with an Army buddy, and we're still friends to this day. We met in 1975 in Germany. So I started working there for Northrop Aircraft with weapon systems. I had a clearance, checking out blueprints of weapon systems, but I was only making $4.25 an hour, $4.27 an hour, which is not a lot and not enough to really make ends meet. So the drug culture was still, the remnants of the 60s.
Yeah.
So all my friends, childhood friends, were driving pretty nice trucks and had dirt bikes. And I was asking, where are the jobs? How are you guys making money? They said, well, we're glowing pod. So I told them, well, show me how. I need to make some money. So I got involved with the criminal element and started doing things. I had every opportunity to be successful and walk through doors that weren't open for other people, having come out of the military. But I made the decision to make fast money. So I got involved with crime. And I think in large part that had a lot to do with unresolved issues from growing up.
Before we get there, because I really want to really get a lot of that information, but now understanding the transition, and with that transition, you then walk into a job, which again, I think in today's world, that's not as it's not readily accessible as it once was, right? I think there's a lot of stigmatism to military culture, transitioning out of service, and so on and so forth. But outside of that, when you have come to a world where you are welcome, you do have a job in place for you, but it just wasn't enough. Now, were there any opportunities that you foreseen in that same job for upward mobility, or was it something that you didn't foresee to be a thing for you at that time?
Well, I wasn't educated. I didn't finish the 10th grade. So I really didn't know that I was capable of actually going to college. So sadly, I never used my GI Bill because I didn't believe that I was smart enough to go to college.
Was there any transitional help where that information of benefits that could be enacted to you? No.
No. When I left the service, I think I probably could have connected to different organizations and maybe applied, but I didn't. I was busy just trying to survive.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, you're relocated from Germany, coming back and getting reacclimated into the States. So I can understand that transition mentally, physically, and also emotionally is a huge one. And at that time, do you have family at that?
I had family. I was living with my mom. I thought that my savings would be waiting for me. I was sending home monthly allotments. Come home to find out that it wasn't. So I think that had a lot to do with me wanting to make some quick money, and at whatever cost, just get some money so I can get a life started.
Yeah, yeah. And I can see the pathway there. I can see the pathway there. But now with that pathway, French introduced you to this to this opportunity. And now tell me more about the opportunity.
Well, it wasn't a good opportunity.
We'll start there.
With that comes just a nightmare. I mean, when I look at it now, and I've made so much money legally. Had I just stayed focused and worked a normal job, I had several jobs. I was a renovator for U-Haul, servicing all the moving centers in Orange County. That could have been real promising. While I was in Northrop, I didn't see myself going anywhere. Yeah, I was willing to do just about anything to just make quick money. So started selling drugs, started growing pot. Eventually I was arrested with 515 pounds of pot, cultivation, charged, and went to prison for 16 months. And that was an eye-opener, but I was still lost. I still hadn't addressed a lot of the things that I needed to address from growing up. So I got involved with running some guns. I got arrested with a Laws rocket, doing foolish things. At the time, the Nicaragua, Sandinista situation was going on down in South America, and they were like, we have a revolution. We need guns.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can get you guns, But looking back, I wish I'd have had someone that could have steered me clear of, not having a father figure, I think, available to say, hey, snap out of it. What the hell are you doing,
Yeah, yeah. And again, it's hard because it's very easy to navigate that, and it almost puts it in a position where it attaches itself to having that unidentified support system in the military, right? And now it transitions back over into civilian sector, and now it can ultimately get you into some pathways that could be very, very tumultuous.
Yeah.
So, but with that, obviously, now you're in prison at this time, and you're trying to just figure it out, right?
When I got arrested, my wife was pregnant with my second child, my son. So when I got out, within I think a day or two, I started working for a janitorial carpet cleaning company. And eventually we started working 7 days a week, 12 hours a night.
Wow.
Just And then during the daytime, I'd work from 7:30 at night till 7:30 in the morning. And then during the daytime, still try to do some carpet cleaning with my business. And was just spreading myself way too thin. So having gone to prison, now working so much, my marriage started to fall apart. And when I went through a separation, which was supposed to be temporary, ended up to be a permanent. That I went into a spiral and just really didn't have the wherewithal to stay strong and work through it. You know, I really don't know who I could have spoke to, or, you know, if someone would have taken notice and intervened. But I started consuming just massive amounts of drugs. This was in the 80s, so
In different
it was
time.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And I fell into that, and spiraled into a nightmare of just being lost and confused and broken. Yeah.
I want to always make sure that we understand that though there are certain resources out here that could have actually provided you help, and what I want to kind of steer it towards is the resources that veterans have the opportunity to receive. It's a lot of times very difficult to walk through those doors or even find the doors that's available to you because being able to transition and understand that a lot of substance abuse you've been exposed to overseas already.
Yeah.
And now it's just kind of put in your lap that it can ultimately be something of a source today. But again, not necessarily saying that at that time frame that's what it was, but we can say that again. Well, not necessarily say, but we can kind of connect the two. But now, with that said, I want to know, how did you get out of that mind frame?
Well, I ultimately took the life of a man in 1984. And he was being involved with drugs. And I was arrested in 1987 and convicted of murder and ended up doing 30 years in prison. And it was there that I really started to bring about a very long-lasting change in my mindset. You know, I found myself in Folsom Prison. I just was so, unhappy with my life. I was like, this is not what I planned to do, where I planned to be. I felt like I failed everybody and myself. So I made a vow to just find the best version of myself that I could. I wanted to be a better friend, a better son, a better brother, a better husband. So I slowly started working on myself. And at the time, there wasn't a lot of rehabilitation in the prison system in California. It just didn't exist. It was lock them up and that's it.
Yeah.
And there was a certain culture where people didn't mind going to prison. That was not me. I did not want to be there. Those were all my friends, But thank God for the military, because I was able to stand up and say, no, I don't want to be involved with the politics and all the nonsense and violence. So I started learning how to do art and drawing cards for my kids, missing you, thinking of you, I love you, happy birthday, whatever it was. But I was really hungry to learn about art. And eventually I started taking classes and then creating classes, anger management, addiction recovery programs that didn't exist. So we would just get a group together and get one of the staff members to sponsor us. And we created our own groups.
That's phenomenal.
I found myself at various prisons. I learned to be a tool and die machinist, and was in Corcoran State Prison, where they flew in, interviewed me, and asked me to go to a joint venture, which was a private company inside prison. So I was making minimum wage. And that's when I really started to focus on my art. So I worked on this painting for a year. And when I was done with it, I stood back and just looked at it and thought, where did this come from? Because I can't do this. It was a beautiful picture of a bobcat done in pastel. And I must have wanted to quit 1,000 times, give up. I had to work through it, and I had a good friend teaching me how to apply it. And but there were times when I just wanted to quit. But I stayed with it and stayed with it. And it paid off, because at the end, I looked at it and realized I don't know where it came from, and I don't know how I did it. But thank you, and I'm going to show as many people as I can. I've got to show my friends this, how to do it, you know. So eventually I became a mirrorless for arts and corrections and started teaching other guys just the tricks that I taught myself. Learned where I could. And then I focused on self-help. I went into NA and AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, and started really getting serious about uncovering all this stuff from my past.
Did the art provide that soothing and that comfort and that support for you?
I finally realized that I didn't need to wake up and get high every morning because that's what I was doing in prison, you know. I was trying to detach. And I finally realized I just need a paintbrush or a set of colored pencils. I don't need to get high, you know. And I quit. That was it. I focused on my art. And that was my go-to when I was frustrated. Whereas before, that was my frustration, was learning how to do it. But now it's my comfort zone. So I spent as much time as I could doing art. So even though I was in prison, I wasn't in prison.
Wow.
Yeah, with art, I was someplace else. You know, creating paintings, learning as much as I could and trying to show as many people as I could how to do it.
And the reason I asked is because I go back to the beginning of the story when you talk about the transition. You know, there's been many multitudes of transitions in your life, but the transition out of the military, and we talk about the art, right? How could that have been so impactful during that time frame if, again, that solace was provided then, right? Because it is a hard transition from military to civilian.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I didn't have nothing waiting for me when I got out of the military. There was nothing I could embrace. I had a lot of family and law enforcement, and a lot of them in the medical field. And I had the opportunity to go to either one, and I certainly had the GI Bill. But again, I just didn't feel like I was smart enough to go to college, you know.
Yeah.
And now I could just kick myself for not doing it because I know I can do it.
Yeah, and how ironic, right? Because again, you're creating curriculums, you're teaching, and you're actually guiding and shaping minds of adults, children, and so on. So, but again, I want to dive into the art piece again. Now, again, you're teaching art how to develop these fantastic artistic pieces, not only in jail, correct? Now you're in prison. And now you're actually being able to have an opportunity to teach others around, correct?
Yeah, so we always had classes. Eventually, I was hired by, it's called Arts and Corrections, run by the state of California in the prison system. And I was a muralist for, I think, 4 years. And would just teach people brushstrokes, color theory, drawing, anything that we could to keep them busy, occupied with self-help. And this is when the pendulum started swinging the other way, and they started realizing the value of rehabilitation. So I didn't see it for some time come all the way down through the pipeline, but certainly Sacramento was looking at it, and programs that we were doing, they were starting to recognize in Sacramento. So I went to a prison. I was transferred to a prison to be a mentor for the youth offender program. So these young kids, young gang members coming out of LA, instead of sending them to a very hardcore, high security prison where they're going to become hardened gang members, they would come here and we would mentor them. And so it was focused on education. A gentleman by the name of Scott Budnick, a movie producer for the Hangover franchise.
Oh, wow.
Got involved with the prison system and really turned everything around, you know. Told us things are changing, things are coming, get ready, start focusing and preparing, study, get these college classes, you know, get involved and be ready. And sure enough, so it was at that time where I started an art program, and I went and got asked for permission from the warden to start an art program, and it was shut down. Long story, but eventually the person standing next to her, the chief deputy warden, said, I think you should look at one of his paintings. And I enrolled those. She said, all right, let me look at one. And I enrolled The Last Supper. And she said, oh my God, I never thought I would see something like this in person. Let me see the other one. And, you know, at first she was like, who are you? What are you doing in my meeting? Sit down and shut up and be quiet. I don't have time. To, I think I'm going to give you an art program. So she reached out, the community resource manager reached out to the local university, and 9 people came in, professors and interns, and I gave them the same pitch that I gave to the warden, and we started a pilot program, and it just took off. They figured we might have 18, 20 people, and we had 110 people. I canvassed the whole yard, went to every cell and told everyone, it's here. Now, you've been asking for it. Come participate. Show up, you know. And it eventually evolved into the Prison Arts Collective. We're in 20 prisons today. And I was hired by the organization when I got out, and that was a huge blessing. Within 79 days of getting out, I met the top directors in Sacramento of the prison system. So I went from a number and a nobody, you know, to having the #1 man standing in front of me, and I'm talking to him with the microphone in a meeting with 300 providers that go into the prison system, many of them that I knew.
Yeah.
So I stood up and thanked each and every one of them for helping guys like me change my life, for what they did for me. And lo and behold, the directors basically said, you had every right to walk out that door and never look back. You choose to go back in and be of service, and we're going to make that happen. So eventually I had a statewide clearance to go back into all California prisons and teach wherever our program was. Going from being an inmate in prison, a number, being told, sit down, shut up, lock it up, you know, to meeting the #1 director of the prison system and being acknowledged for who I really was as a person and as an artist was quite the, you know, it was just, it was an incredible feeling. Now I'm hired by this organization, and I'm fighting to get approval to go back into the prisons. So
Wow.
my parole officer, I had to do a travel pass for 50 miles away, 50 miles or further. I had to get permission to travel. And so I'd have to get permission to, and tell them, I'm going into the prison. You know where I'm going to be. I'm not going to be at the neighborhood, you know. So that we all laughed about that. I had a great parole officer, went to a transition house for a year where I had to reacclimate to society. Man, gone for 30 years, it was a different world. A lot of things made me real emotional, especially seeing the homeless, seeing women on the on-ramp, you know, just took me to tears. I'd never seen that before.
Yeah.
So I was like, what is going on out here? What, you know? So found myself working at the university.
And how did you get there?
Well, I was hired by my organization that I co-founded. And pretty soon I was a lead teaching artist. I didn't even finish high school. My coworkers have masters. I was like, how did I get here? You know? Yeah, it was just some incredible opportunities, doors open that, I went and taught at Alcatraz. You know?
Wow.
Taught a class on Alcatraz for arts and corrections. We had a week-long workshop that was incredible.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, literally changing your trajectory of life.
Yeah.
And changing others' trajectory. And that's what it's all about. And I think it's going back also to the core, right? The core commitment that you have not only wanted to serve yourself, but you also wanted to serve your brothers and sisters around you. And I think a lot of that is attributed to being in such a unified environment of the military. That's phenomenal. And now with those transition of being able to support those in prison, those out of prison, and now could you tell us who do you serve now?
Today I'm at U.S. Vets, and I serve the veteran population, and started a nice art program. We do grief painting. We have a doctor by the name of Dr. Taylor that helps a lot of the veterans there work through a lot of issues, but mostly helping them get their benefits. And I was able to get my benefits. For years, I struggled with trying to figure out how to do it. And I just didn't want to go back and relive any of that nightmare.
Yeah.
But I forced myself to do it, and what a blessing it was. I love building community. I experienced that in prison. I love doing it out here. So the homeless population really has a place in my heart. I've been there. So now it's being of service to my community and mostly with the veterans.
That's phenomenal. So now you're again, and we're talking about a skilled artist being able to really teach the veteran community on how to go through grief through the artistic way.
Well, it's not just grief. So we have painting classes during the week, but a lot of them struggle with addiction. A lot of them struggle with, there's just a wide list of things that they struggle with. I use art as a vehicle to get them involved, get them painting, and then individually I'm helping them work through stuff. I'm helping them identify stuff. And it's usually between us, I haven't duplicated what I did in the prison system. I'd usually have 20 to 25 people in a class. I have large classes now, but we haven't broached the topics that we did while I was in prison, which is really early childhood trauma. I benefited from 30 years of counseling from some of the best psychologists in the prison system that really helped me get a good, strong grasp of myself, who I was, how I became who I was, and how I changed, and the tools that I use today to stay focused and grounded, without using drugs. So I'm trying to pass that on to the veterans population and let them know you're not alone. We believe in you. We're still being of service, and let's help you get your life back in order, get your documents together, I volunteer in the linen closet, the clothing room, so it's a joy for me to be able to give them new clothes or really nice clothes when they first come in. They have nothing.
Yeah.
Especially giving them suits and seeing them go to a job interview, to me is just phenomenal.
That's awesome.
Having them come back and say, I got the job, and looking sharp, that's life-changing.
And truly, that's what it's about, being able to be of service. And not only have you been of service to yourself, but you've been of service to many. Why? Again, I personally want to thank you, because that's what we do here, is that we provide service not only to the veteran community, but making a community to provide service to. So I just want to thank you. Again, your story has been amazing, and we want to thank you for continuing to serve and service our veterans. With all that illustrious life of yours that was lived, I wanted to ask, what advice would you give to any young service members today who is, transitioning into the military or transitioning out?
Well, it's a different world today. If you're transitioning, if you're going into the military, kudos to you. Thank you. It'll be an incredible opportunity. Doors will open, and you'll learn so much. I really encourage men and women to go into the service and seek out opportunities that you normally would never experience. I promise you will change your life. And for those that are in, there's a lot more available today than what there was way back when. I would encourage you to get help if you need to get help. If you've got something weighing heavily on your mind, find someone to talk to about it. There used to be a stigma about mental health issues and talking to mental health professionals. I strongly encourage you to reach out and speak with somebody that you can trust, establish a measure of trust, and deal with your problems, because the resources are available. People are ready to help you, and there's no problem that you can't overcome. And I'm there for you. Other prior service members are there for you. The system is built now to really provide the services that we need, and we need to seize those opportunities and tie into that service that's available to us.
Well, veterans, you heard it here first. There are services available. There are resources available for you. And not only are there services and resources available, we're here to help. Now, Mr. Hunter, what message would you like our audience to take away from this story here?
The message I would say is there's no greater thing to do than to be of service to your community. It is so fulfilling and so rewarding in being of service to others who are struggling in whatever capacity they're struggling in. But to help them along their journey and to inspire and encourage them, we're all in this together.
And you guys heard it here first, veterans. Aspire to inspire, just as Mr. Stanley Hunter has, and continue to serve. With that being said, thank you so much. It was an honor to have you here.
Thank you, sir.